Hey everyone, welcome to Byte Sector. Today we're going to be doing a review of our very first QLC based SSD. It comes to us from Sabrent, it's called the Rocket Q, and we'll see you on the other side of the intro. So today we're going to be taking a look at Sabrent's Rocket Q M.2 SSD. And this SSD, when it dropped a few months ago, sent ripples through the hardware industry and the consumer market. Not because it was a QLC M.2 SSD, but because Sabrent launched an 8 terabyte M.2 SSD that was aimed at consumers and wasn't ridiculously priced. So we had to go and get one. So before we get too far into the benchmarks and installing this thing in our system, I'm going to talk a bit about NAND memory and where QLC comes from. It first dropped sometime in the last year and a half, and when it first happened, everybody thought it was great, but reviewers were quick to latch on to the problems with QLC memory. So I'm going to give you a quick bit of history. So when it all started, there was SLC memory. It was single layer memory, and as you'd expect, you write a bit to a sector and done. You want to change that bit, you just write a new bit to the sector. Done. Then there came MLC memory, which was multi-layer memory. And you could write 2 bits per cell. And so you could write a bit and then write another bit on top of it. And if you wanted to change that underlying bit, you just rewrite both bits, the new bit plus the old existing bit. So then TLC memory came out, which was, lo and behold, triple layer memory. And that again, 3 cells stacked, like 3 states in one cell. So if you wanted to rewrite one of the states, you had to rewrite the other 2. Again, as you can expect, there were performance issues with that. You could do, and we'll call them program erase or write erase. Let's call them PE, program erase. You could do a huge number of program erase cycles per cell because in SLC memory there was only 1 bit in there. You only had to write 1 bit. Now that dropped significantly with MLC because you were writing multiple bits per cell. And so there was a huge performance hit that ranged anywhere between 60 and 90% in the program erase cycles. And then with TLC memory, which isn't as common but still out there, that number dropped again by half from MLC, not even from SLC. From MLC to TLC, we got a 50% performance hit in the number of program erase cycles you could have. And when QLC first dropped, when it first was invented and people came out and they're like, you're going to get about 100 program erase cycles per cell. Keep in mind, this is down from about 100,000 per cell in SLC to 100. Now, manufacturers have been working on the technology and they've really beefed it up and bumped that number up to about 1,000 program erase cycles per cell. So as you can imagine, you don't want to be using QLC-based memory for workload or write-intensive workloads because you're just going to wear out your SSDs very, very fast. And that's why maybe the price and the value proposition is so appealing for QLC, because the Sabrent Rocket Q, for example, the 500 gig starts at $80 US, and that scales upwards. There's a 1 terabyte, a 2 terabyte. The 4 terabyte is $760 US. And then if you want to talk 8 terabytes, we're not talking $5,000, we're not talking $10,000 or $20,000, we're talking $1,500 US. On Newegg, that's about, I think I saw it on newegg.ca for 2,100 Canadian. That's insane. For 8 terabytes of SSD storage, ignore the fact that it's in a gum stick sized form factor. That's incredible. So the value proposition's there. Performance specs, as you'd imagine. The problem isn't with the controller and how fast it can write the data into the bits. The problem is with how resilient the bits are and the cells. So claimed performance numbers, you guessed it, over 3 gigabytes a second. The IOPS, don't even get me started. The IOPS claims range from, I don't know, 255,000 IOPS read and 670,000 IOPS write on a 2 terabyte, up to 550,000 IOPS read and 680,000 IOPS write on the 8 terabyte. I can tell you without giving too much away, our benchmark performance numbers didn't come quite that close to those numbers. But what can you do? Like I said, 3 gigabytes a second write, 3.2-ish gigabytes a second read. This claim numbers, respectable. In fact, on par with most M.2 SSDs that don't use QLC memory. So you're getting the performance. You're getting the amazing price point, and you're getting it all in an M.2 form factor. On paper, it sounds amazing. I mean, just incredible. And I can't wait to get this into the test bench, run the benchmarks, and see exactly how well it performs. So we're over at our test bench, and we've got the Rocket Q, and you know what? I'll be honest, I'm excited to get this puppy installed. Full disclosure to you guys, kind of misled you earlier. We didn't actually get the 8 terabyte Rocket Q from Sabrent. What we got was the 2 terabyte. It's very similar in spec, with just a lower IOPS on the reads and slightly faster writes, at least claimed writes. So it's nice to note it's a single-sided M.2. We're going to slide it into our only second M.2 slot on the motherboard. It's a vertical slot off the board. It's not my favorite motherboard because of this problem, but what can you do, right? So I'll just push that in there like that. Make sure it slots in. I don't like putting the pegging because it is a peg, it's not a screw. Not my favorite motherboard. So anyways, let's turn this thing on. Wait for it to boot up and see how things start to look. So while we'll wait for Windows to just log in here, I just wanted to quickly go over our testing methodology. So we're going to run some tests with raw file copies because we want to see how well this performs. We've got a standard 70 gig file that we copy across from one M.2 SSD to our target drive. Then we do a Crystal Disk Mark benchmark because we want to see just how well it performs under a synthetic benchmark. We also do a SciSoft benchmark, and then we do some game load testing. And primarily game load testing because we've only really reviewed gaming M.2 SSDs. I know that I'm not expecting the world from a QLC based SSD for game load times, but we'll see how well it comes out. I mean, how slow can it possibly load? It's only reading at that point. So we'll see how well that works. So before we get into the benchmarking and the testing and then our results, I just wanted to load up Windows Explorer and show you guys the drive. It's got 1.81 terabytes of usable space, as you can see right there. Boom. There's our new volume, 1.81 terabytes of disk space free. And we're going to benchmark the crap out of that drive before we bring you the results. We'll see you in a second. So just going through the benchmarks, starting off with SciSoft Sandra, the drive score. You'll notice that the Rocket Q is actually performing at about the same level as the Seagate Firecuda 510, which is a dedicated gaming drive. And it's a bit below the Western Digital SN750, but both of those, neither of them are QLC, both of them are MLC. And then we've got our last generation Samsung 960 Pro lagging really far behind. Coming over to Crystal Disk Mark, you know what, we're going to look at sequential speeds first. We did a 1 gig file, 5 runs, and then averaged the 5 runs. You can see here that Certainly it performed much better than the Western Digital SN750 and the Samsung 960 Pro in both the sequential read and sequential write. It did fall behind the FireCuda 510, but you know what, as I said, kind of apples to oranges here. It held its own, is the takeaway from the CDM sequential speeds. Coming over to the random 4K IOPS, this is an average, so keep that in mind. Second highest result, you'll see it coming in at 400 and just a hair shy of 458,000 IOPS on the random write 4K. Certainly that's a far cry from the 670,000 IOPS claimed. And then the random read IOPS, I was a bit disappointed with the results here. It was the lowest result we've had from any SSD in our lab. Certainly I ran these tests over and over, reran them, tried to tune the system the best we could. 310,793.2 is the result. It is what it is, right? For the raw file copy tests. So in the top here, the peak write speed, the Rocket Q killed it. Nothing came close as a burst speed. So, and you're like, well, who cares about a burst speed, right? Because a burst is a burst, and if it's sustained that matters the most. Well, I admit this is in an empty drive. I mean, we didn't load it up with 1.5 terabytes before we started writing to it, but it had a 39.7 second copy time, which is the fastest copy time we've had from an SSD in our labs. And I put even more stock in this now because this is a real world test. There's nothing synthetic about this. This is copying from one M.2 SSD to another NVMe SSD, pure results. Very impressed with the Rocket Q. And then lastly, our game load times. So these numbers are in seconds, which means the lower the number, the better the performance. Our two game tests, World of Warships, World of Tanks. The World of Tanks result is dismal. When every tenth of a second counts in these benchmarks, this one really fell behind, a full second slower than our previous slowest drive. For World of Warships, the load times were better. Second fastest result, which is kind of confusing, but again, we tuned the drive, we went through the benchmarks. This is an average of multiple runs. I can only tell you that the numbers are what they are, so impressive. Very impressive, not disappointing at all. So there you have it. The Sabrent Rocket Q 2 terabyte has been put through its paces, run through the gamut of benchmarks that we have for it, and I walk away feeling very impressed with it. I certainly judged QLC memory previous to this experience in a much harsher light. Now I do put the caveat, the more data on the drive, the slower things will get, to a point where it's a case of diminishing returns, okay? The 2 terabyte Sabrent Rocket Q, I highly recommend these SSDs if you need to put something like a game library on them, where it's a lot of reading and not a lot of writing. Although, as we've seen in our example, maybe not the best use of it, because game performance time, load times weren't the best performance we've seen. So then maybe archival storage, photos, videos. My point is, it does the job, it does it well, and you know what, if you need 8 terabytes of SSD storage, it's still going to be faster than an 8 terabyte rotational hard drive or a 2 terabyte rotational hard drive. At 80%, this is still the faster option. Highly recommend the Sabrent Rocket Q. Can't wait to see what they do with their PCIe 4 drives. In the meantime, guys, you have a great day. We're going to copy our game library onto this drive and see how well it performs and enjoy it, because our previous drive was only 1 terabyte and now we've got 2. Have a great day. Thanks for watching today's video. If you didn't like it, you know what to do. Give us a thumbs down. Leave us a comment below letting us know what we can improve for next time. But if you did like it, give us a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the bell beside it so that you get notified the next time we post a video. Don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Have a great day, and we'll see you all next time.